Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about 12 Ounce Mouse, Season 1 and 2. Now, 12 Ounce Mouse is awful to look at, strange, weird, doesn't make any real sense. The animation is off-putting. It looks like maybe it's done by a child. It sort of looks like they put no effort into it. It has absurdist humor, David Lynchian kind of storytelling. It's just an overall hard to get into show. And I'm going to tell you, I absolutely love that about it. I think if you are completely turned off by 12 Ounce Mouse, guess what? This show isn't for you. Go away. I don't want you here. But if you get into it and understand the strange, weird simulation world that they're in 12 Ounce Mouse, you're prepared to have a lot of fun with probably one of the great art house TV shows that there ever has been. When I looked at this show originally, and I was a big fan of season 1 and 2, but we'll get to that. I just fell absolutely in love with this because this is the kind of stuff that I grew up with, the Adult Swim or the Space Ghost Coast to Coast style. When I was, in middle school and high school, I got very into Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And that kind of absurdist idea, the one where they acted like they're getting attacked by aliens and they just had, Sonic Youth and some people jam out for a whole episode. I remember watching that and thinking, like, this is the coolest show in the world. Granted, I was a Sonic Youth fan, but still, and still am. But it's not just that. I look at what this show was to me at the time, and I've never heard any statements from the creators of this. This is, I guess, my own perspective as someone who watched Space Ghost and watched from the beginning of Adult Swim and Aqua Teen Hunger Force and all those things. When I looked at 12 Ounce Mouse, I saw a network that had completely changed. It wasn't this weird cult thing. Now, frat boys were watching Family Guy on Adult Swim. That's sort of like what Adult Swim represented to a lot of people. It was like the network. When I say, what's your favorite Adult Swim show, people just say Family Guy and stuff, or Futurama, or maybe King of the Hill at the time. What this represented is the weirdness and strange kind of humor that they used to be into. But now they were had this hugely successful nighttime block that had Aqua Teen Hunger Force, that had, these shows that almost every college kid knew at the time. And it was very different because Space Ghost was popular, but it wasn't as omnipresent as Adult Swim was becoming. And this looked more like, let's go back to our roots but get even stranger. It's a complete rejection of what Adult Swim would really become. I do think Adult Swim has stayed true to its strangeness and, from Off the Air to Too Many Cooks to all the different weird shit they do. I don't think they ever lost it. But at the time, I remember feeling like maybe they will get a little more mainstream, and this is as far off as they can do it. I don't know what the strangest fucking thing Adult Swim has ever done that seems like an endless stupid competition that you'll never win at, but at the time that's how I felt about it. And as it was someone who was kind of nearing the end of their time in art school, was, let's say, how do we say this nicely? Well, let's just say I was very high when I watched season 1. So it was very, very amazing at the time. But it was also not just because I was, high and stuff. It was also because I had never really seen a kind of David Lynchian show, weird, strange, off-putting thing, break so many narrative things, hint at stuff, and it wasn't trying to be lost. It was that first season, sure, you're in a simulation, but you're kind of in the kind of bizarre ether of it. You're stuck in this simulation. He doesn't really know, and he's not entirely fighting to get out most of the time, and the show doesn't really fully know what it is. So it's a show that's already weird and strange. Figuring out what it is just insanely, amazingly interesting. And 12 Ounce Mouse, it just really didn't know what it was. And I remember that it was already a cool show. I already really liked it, but that scene towards the end of season 1 where you have Stone Peanut Cop in front, in the foreground you have a screen of Fitz and Skillet kind of shooting like crazy, and they pause it and then zoom out and then kind of light him up and then he'd talk. It was theatrical. It was strange. I was like, oh my god, it just felt like something no live action thing would be brave enough to do or could pull off, and they were doing so many weird narrative things that it was so inspiring actually, because no one would do a thing like that. And then the gunpoint doesn't even matter. It was like absurd. It was existential. Did anything matter? Did this matter? Being stuck in a simulation, what does that say about life? What does it say about the point of having this success and being this strange? What's the point of it? If you can't rebel against anything, are you just going to be strange for the sake of it? Or are you going to be strange because you're fighting something? I just remember just looking at that first season, watching it over and over again, and even having the episode where Skillet, I guess it's what's called the 12-ounce mouse Spider-Man special. I don't remember it having that name, but who knows, where Skillet has this extended drum solo. You can find the drum solo on YouTube. It is an awesome drum solo, by the way. It's a different cut of a Spider episode. I think you just have like a small little drum solo, but to me, like the only true way to watch season 1 is to watch Spider twice and watch that extended one. I don't know why. It's very off-putting. It just felt like this insane, beautiful sort of world. And I know, they've always said they made the show kind of because they knew if they made it like basically like bare bones cheap, they would be able to make this weird, strange show, and that the character designs were made very quickly and weren't allowed to spend more time on them. I sort of like that about it. I know that everyone's views on animation has become pretty stagnant into what exactly things should be, and I get that 12-ounce mouse like doesn't really give a shit about those things. But if you're more open to then just like staying on model and like actually having good art and understanding different interpretations of the medium, and not being a conservative idiot who doesn't really understand the full potential of animation and limiting yourself to not fully getting that potential of animation, even crappier animation actually has, then maybe you'd be into something like this. But if you don't want to do that and limit yourself, then fine. But 12-ounce mouse, well, I don't give a shit. To me, it all factored into that. I loved how cheap it was. I love the fact that Rhoda was drawn on top of a Perfect Care Forever script. And apparently that was an accident, and then they accentuated the script so it looked even cooler, which to me like almost doesn't feel like an accident, but I don't even care because it's such a cool idea. I like that there was this eye creature who says, "I going to Island." I can't quote him, but the I just loved it. And Fitz is such a good character because like he's drinking, he clearly almost knows it's a simulation, doesn't give a shit, but he also like has that kind of like I don't care kind of attitude. He works perfectly in that this show definitely shifted from being this just surreal dreamlike kind of show to being like this hardcore crazy sort of action kind of thing. But he's a perfect character for that because you can go into action, you can go into the strange kind of David Lynchian thing. Between Skillet and the Eye Guy are kind of my two favorites. Also, Skillet's awesome on the drums. And Shark, who you probably recognize from Space Ghost as Old Kentucky Shark. I think I used to call him Old Kentucky Shark for a little bit while we were watching it. I like him and Fitz's back and forth. The first season was kind of a big deal for me, and I kept rewatching it, and I don't think season 2 ever represented as much. It's still surreal. It has some fun moments, like the whole thing with Rectangular Businessman and Shark being stuck in a car for like several episodes. That really goes on for a while. I like that actually, but it is not as good as season 1. I think season 1, and I've even seen like more reviews of even now of season 1 than season 2, and I think because season 1 just like surprised people in such a way, I don't think season 2 could really get that back, much like, a season 2 of Twin Peaks, for example. And I think that like helped it. I don't know if it was trying to like make it more commercial or something. I guess it's not, but it does feel a little more like it's trying to be more of a show. It reminds me a lot more of Matt Malero, the other show he created, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I don't know. I still like season 2. I like the idea of like trying to get out of the simulation, sort of understanding Fitz. The whole idea of his kind of the false memories, I guess, of his family, who I guess aren't real. Never sure. I always thought they were false, suppressed memories. To be honest with you, I thought it was just a mess with them. Who knows what's real and what's not in terms of the show. That's sort of the other thing with season 2, and I think it goes true for horror films. It goes true for even Twin Peaks, actually. I don't like when that stuff's explained. It's way more fun to be in that idea. It makes it more terrifying. It makes it more scary. It makes it more exciting. Like, I don't want to know what the simulation is. I know it has a name, and I sort of forget it because I don't want to know. I like living in this world where it's like, is this just the world this lives in, where people talk in rhymes when he goes to the liquor store and nothing happens, and then he throws a beer bottle and goes like, tell you what. and that's awesome. Like I just love how, I like that, first off, that most people don't know this show who, say they're into like high art stuff, and it is by far like the most high art, strange, off-putting, like idiot kind of show I've ever seen. It just captures the Adult Swim thing, but I think it captures it in a way that shows like they're going into the surreal in such a way that emphasizes, I think, what that kind of surreal nature can really do. In terms of this kind of a story, because like I've never like wondered about something as much as when I watched season 1, but I think when we get to season 2 and we understand a little more, I'm less interested in it. Like they're fighting this big thing and like you find out Shark's behind it, and I kind of like the Fitz and Shark like talking at the desk. Like I like that a lot more, actually. I think that's kind of more where I'm at. I like him and Skill like going and like finding these guns and like all the shootouts and all the action stuff in it. Like it's still like actually a very good show, but it sort of pales in comparison to me the least significance for me. And the true, like, to me it's like, I think it sort of became its own different thing. I mean, it feels, obviously still feels like an Adult Swim show, but it feels like a continuation of like that kind of Space Ghost Aqua Teen type style. And we get to season 2, it feels like the violence that you remember from stuff like that, but it didn't seem like the fun, and it didn't seem as weird, to be honest. I think that's kind of one of my biggest problems with season 2. Although I still like season 2, but I also think like I remember liking season 2 more when it was on, but I also think I watched season 2 just as it was going on, less like I watched season 1 like over and over again in a certain order and all this stuff. Whereas season 2, I think I just watched when it was on and watched it. Like I just don't have as much of a detachment to. And although I quite like it, and I like the idea of like figuring out you're in a simulation and sort of getting out of it, it's sort of like the difference between being in a dream and fighting your way out. I guess I don't enjoy fighting your way out, and I don't feel like it's as surprising, and I still find like interesting ideas from like the kind of the idea of the clock or the time gas and like who's doing what, and like him waking up and like having that dream with like the frozen phone and everything like that. It's just such a strange, crazy ass show at the beginning, and I think it still is. Because I think a lot of people will think I'm crazy for loving this show so much. But I think it is maybe made for, the stoned art school kid, looking for, some narrative inspiration. It sort of rejects the mainstream in such a degree that I think most people can't get on board with it. That's why you have so many negative reviews of it, because I think there are people who want to get into, understand, have this real, movie should be, this, that, and the third, and 12 Ounce Mouse isn't interested in that. I don't think 12 Ounce Mouse sort of isn't interested in being much of anything. They put out episodes with the wrong mixes sometimes. Like, they really, like, rushed and made this, like, punk rock, dirty show, and I think that's, like, what made it so cool for me. And I love watching Fitz fight his way out of the simulation and figure it out, while also just, like, kind of bathing in the absurdity of it all, and sort of like just being there, being stuck and not being able to find your way out of it is a dangerously absurd, funky ass nightmare. And I think it's the kind of a nightmare that you can sort of oddly enjoy. And I think 12 Ounce Mouse like goes into the dark horror of that absurdist kind of humor, but that absurdist way of life that just kind of like doesn't really make any sense. It might not even matter, but you just kind of have to take it in as you go. And I think that's why that spirit is just so alive in me and alive in this show. And it's just, as well as I think it is almost like the most like kind of like art house fuck you to anyone who doesn't like it that I've ever seen in my life, and I think that's amazing. Alright, so to be clear on this review, I'm reviewing season 1 and 2. I want to review season 3 hopefully next week, and I might do a separate thing for the webisode and Invictus. I didn't watch those because to me those aren't really part of 1 and 2, and they're not really part of 3. I'll figure out what to do with that later, but maybe that's just my own stipulation or something like that. As well as there is a DVD. I have it right here. This is the actual 12 Ounce Mouse DVD It is not something I really like because it doesn't show the episodes as individual episodes. Actually, it as a movie. It actually says on here, 12 Ounce Mouse, the movie. I never liked that about it actually. I like the individual episodes the way they are. To me, that's like how most people do it. It's like a 3-hour movie. I watched it once. I wasn't really as into it. I sort of like the stops and the starts and hearing the theme song a million times and like watching a show. I wish it doesn't matter now because DVD's dead, but I wish they'd put the 12 Ounce Mouse thing out as episodes you could select. But I mean, I guess you can skip around chapters, but that's how they chose to do it. But I'm happy to have it. It's awesome to have it. I actually watched it on their app or their streaming service thing, not on that, because that's like a different they make a lot of different versions of episodes, which is a whole 12 Ounce Mouse thing, I guess. But I appreciate it, but it's actually never how I try to recapture the show, because the show to me is the episodes, not this weird ass movie cut they made. But it's cool that they did that, I guess. But I don't know if they ever aired it on TV, so it's like a very rare movie. But I didn't really want to I didn't want to review that. I wanted to experience 12 Ounce Mouse again the way, I guess, Matt Malera intended it. Or didn't, I guess. So if you have seen 12 Ounce Mouse Season 1 and 2 and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.